The great hall of the Galactic Council floated in the middle of a massive ring-shaped station, orbiting a dying blue star. Hundreds of alien species filled the seats, whispering in strange voices. Their eyes, scales, and metallic faces all turned toward the center, where a single human stood. Captain Elias Ward, representative of Earth, stood tall even though he was surrounded by creatures that could crush him with a thought. His dark eyes reflected the cold lights above, and though his uniform was torn and burned, his posture was unshaken. At the front of the hall sat the Council of Nine, the most powerful rulers in the galaxy. They had judged countless worlds, but today, they faced something different: humanity. A voice echoed through the chamber. It was deep, metallic, almost godlike. Captain Elias Ward of Terra, you stand before the Galactic Council, accused of crimes against the Unified Peace Treaty. Elias did not flinch. Crimes? He asked, his tone calm. Or survival? The hall rippled with whispers. The alien crowd hissed and murmured in confusion. The High Chancellor, a massive insectoid being named Vortal, slammed his claws against the podium. Silence. Humanity stands guilty of spreading war, chaos, and resistance against the Council's authority. You are an unstable species. Your kind refuses to obey the rules of peace. Elias raised his head. Peace? He smiled bitterly. You call it peace when you strip worlds of their freedom? When you burn cities to make them obey? The Council gasped. No one ever spoke to the High Chancellor like that. Vortal's eyes glowed crimson. You dare accuse the Council? Elias took a deep breath. I don't accuse. I remind you, humanity never asked to join your empire. You came to our system. You took our colonies. And when we defended ourselves, you called it rebellion. The tension grew thick. One of the council members, a crystal being named Serath, spoke softly. Captain Ward, your fleets destroyed 2 council dreadnoughts. Millions died. Elias's jaw tightened. And how many humans did your fleets burn on Mars? How many children were vaporized in the name of order? For a moment, even the council fell silent. Elias's words carried across the hall, reaching every alien watching the trial broadcast. Many had never heard a human speak before, but now his voice, strong and fearless, echoed in their minds. Vortal broke the silence. Enough, the evidence is clear. Humanity is a danger to the galaxy. The Council will vote on your fate. Elias looked up at the towering figures. You think you can decide the fate of humanity? Vortal leaned forward, his voice low. We already have. A red light spread through the hall. One by one, each council member placed their hand, claw, or appendage on the glowing sphere that represented judgment. Verdict: guilty. The word echoed through the station like thunder. Sentence: eradication. Earth will be purged. Gasps filled the hall. Some species cheered. Others looked uneasy. But Elias Ward simply stood still, his face unreadable. Vortal smirked. Do you have any last words, human? Elias looked up, his voice calm but sharp. Yes. You've just made the greatest mistake in the history of the galaxy. The chamber went silent again. Vortal frowned. Explain yourself. Elias smiled faintly. You think humanity is just one planet. You think we are weak because we bleed, because we fall. But you don't understand what happens when humans are cornered. You've united us, not through fear, but through defiance. He took a small device from his wrist and pressed it. A hologram appeared behind him, showing hundreds of human ships hidden in deep space. Silent, waiting. While you were judging us, Elias said. We were watching you. The aliens gasped as they saw fleets forming beyond the Council's scanners. They hadn't detected them. Not a single one. Vortal rose from his seat. Impossible. Your world was under blockade. Elias's eyes glowed faintly with blue light. You never understood humanity's greatest weapon. It isn't our ships. It isn't our weapons. It's our will. The hologram shifted again, now showing human colonists on distant moons, working in secret bases, their eyes fierce and unbroken. You call us dangerous, Elias said, stepping closer to the council podium. But the truth is, we only fight when pushed too far. And now you've pushed us past the edge. The hall trembled slightly as distant alarms began to sound. The council members looked around in confusion. What's happening? One shouted. Elias spoke softly. That sound. Means your communications are failing. Your defense grid just went offline. Humanity doesn't fight fair anymore. Vortal slammed his claws again. Guards, arrest him! 2 towering guards approached Elias, but before they could reach him, a pulse of light flashed across his badge, and he vanished in a shimmer of blue energy. The council members shouted, panicked. Teleportation is forbidden inside the chamber. But Elias was gone. Only his words remained echoing through the hall. You've condemned Earth, but in doing so, you've condemned yourselves. As the echoes faded, the council members looked at one another with dread. Outside the station, stars seemed to flicker unnaturally. Something was moving out there, something vast, silent, and human, and the galaxy was about to learn what true defiance looked like. The Galactic Council's judgment chamber was in chaos. Guards ran through the glowing corridors of the massive orbital station, their weapons drawn, eyes searching for any sign of the vanished human. But Captain Elias Ward had already slipped beyond their reach. For the first time in centuries, the Council was afraid. They had sentenced worlds before, entire civilizations, but never had one defied them like this. High Chancellor Vortal slammed his claws on the control table. Find him! Find that human! The officers scrambled to obey, but the station's systems were failing. Hollow screens flickered. Sensors showed false readings and comms were filled with static. Even the Council's most secure channels were jammed. Impossible, hissed Serath, the crystalline being. No one can breach the Council's core network. But then the lights dimmed, and a voice echoed through every speaker, calm and steady. Maybe no one ever tried hard enough. The voice was human. Vortal's eyes widened. He's inside the system. The Council's command room glowed red as symbols flashed across the displays. Ancient Terran code. None of the aliens could read it, but one word appeared again and again. Vengeance. Far beyond the Council's reach, hidden in the shadow of a dead star, the Shadow Fleet came alive. Thousands of ships, some old, some newly built in secret, drifted in the darkness. Their hulls were painted black, absorbing every trace of light. They didn't appear on scanners. They didn't send signals. They waited. Inside the flagship Erebus, Captain Elias Ward stood on the command deck surrounded by a small crew. They were not many. Barely 50 ships had escaped the Council's purge, but every person aboard was ready to die for Earth. Beside him, a young officer named Lena Cross spoke quietly. Sir, they voted. The Council has declared Earth for eradication. Elias nodded, his face calm. I know, that was their last mistake. The crew fell silent. Through the viewport, the dying blue star flickered weakly, casting cold light over the fleet. Lena hesitated. We're outnumbered 1,000 to 1, sir. The Council controls every major system. We can't win this war. Elias turned toward her. Then we won't fight it their way. He pressed a button, and a holographic map appeared. Dozens of red dots spread across the galaxy. These are their relay hubs. Cut those and their fleets go blind. No communication, no coordination. Lena frowned. Sabotage missions? Elias smiled faintly. No, liberation missions. Every planet they control. Every race they've enslaved. We give them a choice. Freedom or silence. The crew exchanged looks. It wasn't war Elias wanted. It was rebellion. Meanwhile, in the Council's central sector, panic spread like wildfire. Entire colonies had gone dark. Supply lines vanished. Patrol ships disappeared without a trace. Reports poured in. Council Outpost 37 destroyed. No survivors at Station Luma. Unknown signal detected matches human encryption. Vortal read each report with growing rage. They were supposed to be broken, he shouted. We took their colonies, burned their fleets. How are they still fighting? Serath's crystal body pulsed faintly. Perhaps you were wrong about them, perhaps. Humans are not like other species, Vortal glared at him. They are vermin. Primitive. They should have been extinct centuries ago. But even as he spoke, another report arrived. This one was worse. Human shadow fleet sighted near the rim. Dozens of ships. Disappeared before engagement. The council room fell silent. Serath spoke softly. They are not attacking us directly. They are waiting. Vortal's claws scraped against the table. Waiting for what? Retribution, Serath said. Back aboard the Erebus, Elias stood alone in his quarters staring at a small hologram, a blue marble floating in darkness. Earth. It wasn't perfect. It had scars from old wars and greed, but it was still home. And now, the Council wanted to erase it from existence. He clenched his fist. "You wanted peace," he whispered, "but you forced us into war." Lena's voice came through the comm. "Captain, our scouts have reached the first target. Council Supply Hub, Sector Delta 4, ready for orders." Elias turned toward the window, eyes cold. "Begin the operation." Outside, small human ships detached from the fleet, gliding silently through the void. They carried no insignia, no transponders, only determination. As they neared the Council hub, their engines dimmed. The alien defenses detected nothing. Then, in perfect silence, they released their payloads. Digital viruses built by human engineers in secret. Within minutes, the hub's systems began to fail. Lights flickered. Weapons shut down. Communication relays died. And just before the hub exploded, a final message appeared on every monitor. "Humanity lives." You should have listened. The explosion rippled across space, lighting up the void. It wasn't just a victory, it was a message. Back on the Erebus, the crew cheered quietly, but Elias did not smile. He looked at the star map again. "They'll come for us now," Lena nodded. "Let them." He turned to his crew. "Every time they strike one of us, 10 more will rise. Every colony they burned is a torch now. And soon, this galaxy will see what humanity truly is." The fleet's engines flared to life, vanishing into hyperspace. Behind them, the wreckage of the Council's first defeat drifted among the stars. And somewhere deep within the Council's core systems, a hidden transmission began to spread, sent by Elias himself. It contained one sentence. A warning, a promise. You judged Earth guilty. Now Earth will judge you. Silence spread through the galactic core like a disease. The Council's proud fleets, once feared across the stars, were vanishing, one after another, into the black. At first, the Council called it terrorism. Then when entire sectors went dark, they called it war. But soon, even those words were not enough. Every transmission that reached them carried the same haunting message, burned into their screens. Humanity lives. The condemned have returned. High Chancellor Vortal slammed his claws against the table, sending sparks across the holomap. 3 more colonies gone, he roared. How can one species cause this much chaos? Beside him, the crystalline being Sarath studied the data with calm curiosity. It isn't only humans now. Vortal turned sharply. What do you mean? Sarath pointed to the map. These worlds were under Council rule for centuries. Their populations, Torgans, Lyrians, even the Ikari, they've joined the rebellion. Humanity's message spread faster than light, Vortal growled. So they infect others with their madness. Sarath tilted his head. Or perhaps they remind others what freedom feels like. Vortal's glare hardened. I will not tolerate such words. But even as he spoke, another alarm blared. Another world had fallen, far from the shining spires of the Council. The rebellion burned brighter every day. On the mining moon of Vexa 9, alien workers once forced to mine for the Council's profit now stood shoulder to shoulder with human Marines. They wore mismatched armor and wielded salvaged rifles, but their eyes burned with the same fire. A human voice echoed through the dusty caves. Hold the line. They're coming. It was Sergeant Talia Reed, a survivor of Earth's blockade. Her voice was sharp, commanding, but filled with determination. Council drones swarmed through the tunnels, firing blue plasma that lit up the darkness. But the rebels had learned human tactics. Move fast, strike hard, vanish. Talia ducked behind cover and shouted into her comm. Team Echo, flank from the left. Push them toward the fuel chambers. An alien fighter beside her hissed. We'll die if that explodes. She grinned. Then make sure it explodes after we leave. Minutes later, the entire tunnel shook as fire ripped through it. The drones fell silent, their remains glowing in the molten dust. The rebels cheered and Talia wiped the soot from her face. That's for Mars, she whispered. Word of the rebellion reached every corner of the galaxy. The Council tried to suppress it, blocking broadcasts, destroying satellites. But humanity's message always returned. Sometimes it came in hacked transmissions. Sometimes it appeared carved into the hull of captured ships. Sometimes it simply appeared as a whisper among soldiers. They thought they could erase Earth. Now Earth erases them. On the Erebus, the Shadow Fleet's flagship, Captain Elias Ward stood before a large hollow projection. Small red dots, the Council's fleets, were blinking out one by one. Lena Cross entered the room. "Reports are in, sir. The rebellions are spreading faster than predicted. Even systems beyond our contact zones are rising." Elias nodded slowly. "Good. That means they understand." "But, sir," Lena said softly, "many of those worlds will burn. The Council won't surrender easily." Elias looked at her. "They'll burn with or without us. The difference now is, we fight back." He turned to his crew. "Begin Phase 2. Let's see how the Council reacts when the prey starts hunting." Meanwhile, in the deep chambers of the Galactic Palace, Vortal stared at the glowing hologram of Earth. "I should have destroyed it long ago," he muttered. "One planet. One mistake." Sarath's crystal form flickered. "You made many mistakes, but the greatest was misunderstanding them." Vortal snarled. "They are primitive. They act without logic." Sarath replied quietly. "And yet they survive when logic says they should not." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then another council member rushed in. "Chancellor, our home fleet." "It's gone." Vortal turned sharply. "Gone? What do you mean, gone?" The officer trembled. "Destroyed. No wreckage. No distress call. Just gone." Vortal's voice lowered to a growl. "They're ghosts." Sarath's eyes glowed faintly. "No, Chancellor. They're humans. Across the galaxy, humanity's defiance became legend. A single ship could disable entire defense networks. A handful of soldiers could turn colonies into strongholds. And every victory carried a message echoing through the stars. "You condemned us. Now we condemn you." One night aboard the Erebus, Elias stood alone on the deck, watching the distant nebula flicker in blue light. Lena approached quietly. "Sir, the Council has declared total war. Every fleet is moving." Elias didn't turn. "Then it's time they saw what total war looks like." He looked at the stars, cold, endless, and full of enemies, and smiled faintly. "They wanted humanity erased. Instead, they gave us purpose." He pressed a command key and the Shadow Fleet began to move. Dozens of ships vanished into hyperspace, their engines glowing like silent ghosts. Across the galaxy, the Council felt the first true taste of fear. Their scanners failed. Their allies turned against them. Their empire began to crumble. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy remembered something ancient, something dangerous, something human. The galaxy was burning. World after world had fallen to rebellion. The once glorious banners of the Galactic Council now hung over empty cities and silent battlefields. Entire fleets drifted in darkness, cut off from command, their captains unsure who to fight or who to trust. The humans had changed everything. They were ghosts, striking from shadows, vanishing before the enemy could react. No one could predict where they would appear next. But the Council had finally decided to strike back. High Chancellor Vortal stood on the bridge of his warship Divinity's Wrath, the largest vessel ever built by the Council. Around him floated hundreds of ships, forming the Grand Armada, a force meant to end the rebellion once and for all. Vortal's deep voice echoed through the comms. "Enough of their games. Enough of their defiance. Today we remind the galaxy who rules it." The fleet's engines flared as thousands of ships jumped into hyperspace, headed straight for a small, insignificant system near a dying red star. It was there that human signals had last been detected. The Council was coming for the Shadow Fleet. On the other side of the galaxy, deep inside a hidden asteroid base, Captain Elias Ward watched the approaching enemy on a holoscreen. His eyes were calm, though the situation was dire. "They've found us," said Lena Cross, standing beside him. Elias nodded. "I wanted them to." Lena frowned. "Sir, there are thousands of ships. We can't win this." Elias smiled faintly. "Who said we're trying to win?" The room went silent. Every officer turned to him. Elias continued. "The Council believes we're hiding. But today we show them the truth. Humanity doesn't hide. We fight, on our terms." He tapped a sequence on the table and the holomap changed, revealing dozens of hidden energy signatures across the asteroid belt. "They think we have one base," Elias said. They're about to find out we have an entire battlefield. Moments later, the Council's Grand Armada emerged from hyperspace. Thousands of glowing ships filled the blackness like a swarm of fireflies. Vortal stood proudly at the center of his bridge. Power the main cannons. Destroy everything, his officers obeyed. Beams of pure plasma streaked across the void, striking asteroids and tearing them apart. Explosions filled the darkness. But then something strange happened. The debris didn't scatter. It moved. Hidden engines activated across dozens of broken asteroids. From within the dust clouds, dark human ships emerged, silent, cold, and deadly. The Shadow Fleet had been waiting. Now, Elias ordered. 1,000 missiles streaked across space, weaving through the debris field. The Council's sensors couldn't track them. Explosions tore through the first wave of alien cruisers. Vortal shouted, "Counterattack!" "Fire at will." The Grand Armada responded, unleashing a storm of energy that lit up the system. But the humans had already vanished again, diving into the shadows, hiding behind debris, striking from impossible angles. On board Erebus, Lena shouted, "We can't hold them forever, sir." Elias didn't answer. He was staring at the holomap, watching the chaos unfold. Then calmly he said, "You're right. We don't need forever." He pressed a command key across the system. Old mining platforms and derelict freighters came alive, each one carrying nuclear warheads built from scavenged parts. "Let's show them," Elias whispered. "What Earth learned from extinction." The explosives detonated in perfect sequence. The shockwave shattered dozens of Council ships, scattering the rest into disarray. The Grand Armada was broken, but victory came with a cost. Half of the Shadow Fleet was gone. Many of their allies had fallen. On the Erebus, fire burned through the lower decks. The ship shook violently, alarms blaring. Lena held onto the railing. "Hull breach on levels 3 and 4. Elias gritted his teeth. "Seal the compartments. Keep firing until the end." Outside, a massive Council dreadnought turned its cannons toward them. Its core glowed bright blue, ready to fire. Lena looked at Elias. "That's a planet-killer beam." "We can't survive that." Elias's eyes narrowed. "No, but we can make sure they don't either." He opened a private channel to the dreadnought's commander. "This is Captain Elias Ward of Earth," he said calmly. "Tell your Chancellor, order means nothing when it's built on blood." The alien commander hesitated. "You are doomed, human," Elias smiled. "Maybe, but so are you," he gave the final command. "Activate the Scorched Protocol." The Erebus's engines roared to full power, launching straight toward the dreadnought. Lena's eyes widened. "Sir, you can't—" "Go," Elias ordered quietly. "Get the others out. Humanity still needs you." The crew tried to stop him, but he locked the bridge controls. The Erebus surged forward, glowing with heat as its reactor overloaded. The dreadnought fired its beam, but it was too late. The two ships collided. The explosion lit up the system brighter than a sun. Every ship, Council and human alike, felt the shockwave. When the light faded, the Erebus was gone. The dreadnought was in pieces, and in that silence something changed. For the first time, the Council's soldiers hesitated. Their commanders were dead, their fleets were broken, and the legend of Elias Ward, the man who defied the galaxy, spread across every star. On distant worlds, slaves rose against their masters. Colonies declared independence. Even alien generals began to question their orders. The Council's empire, the order that had lasted for 10,000 years, was falling apart. Serath, watching from the Council chamber, whispered softly, "The fall of order has begun." Vortal turned to him, his face pale with fury. "Then we end them before they end us." Serath's crystal form dimmed. "It's too late for that, Chancellor. You didn't destroy Earth. You created it again in every corner of the stars." Vortal's claws trembled. "Then we burn the stars if we must." He looked out the viewport, his reflection glowing in the cold light. "But humanity will burn with us." The explosion that consumed Erebus was seen across half the sector. For a moment, the light was brighter than any star. Then it faded into silence. Every ship, human and alien alike, watched the destruction in stunned quiet. No one spoke. No one cheered, because in that single flash, something greater than victory or defeat had happened. Captain Elias Ward was gone. On a nearby transport ship, Lena Cross stood at the viewport, her face lit by the dying light of the battle. Her eyes were wet, but her voice remained steady. "He knew what he was doing," she whispered. Behind her, a young pilot said softly, "He saved us all." Lena shook her head. "No, he gave us something to fight for." The words spread through the fleet like fire. Every surviving human ship broadcast the same message across the stars. Simple, clear, and final. Erebus is lost. But Elias Ward lives in us all. The Council's Grand Armada was shattered. Only fragments of ships drifted through the debris field, their communications silent. Back on the Council homeworld, High Chancellor Vortal stared at the reports in disbelief. "How?" he muttered. "How could one man cause this?" Beside him, Sarath's crystal body glowed faintly. "Because he understood something you never will." Vortal glared at him. "And what is that?" "That humanity does not die when one human falls," Sarath replied. "It only burns brighter." Vortal slammed his claws on the table, shattering the projection. "Enough of your riddles. Prepare the next armada. We will end this rebellion before it spreads any further." But even as he spoke, more reports arrived. Entire fleets refusing orders, colonies cutting ties, and alien races declaring independence. The Council's empire was collapsing from the inside. Weeks passed. Across the galaxy, whispers turned into movement. On a frozen moon in the Theta sector, human engineers rebuilt their ships using wreckage scavenged from old battles. They painted a single symbol on every hull, a burning star, the emblem of the Erebus. On distant worlds, alien resistance leaders began to speak the name Elias Ward like a prayer. They told stories, some true, some exaggerated, of the man who stood before the Council and defied their judgment, the man who vanished from their prison and returned as a ghost, the man who sacrificed himself to ignite a war for freedom. The legend grew faster than any fleet could travel. Meanwhile, Lena Cross had become the new commander of the Shadow Fleet. But unlike Elias, she did not lead from the shadows anymore. Her fleet moved openly now, its transponders broadcasting a single message in every language. "This is the fleet of Earth. We fight for every world that dares to be free." The message spread to millions of systems. Some ignored it, some feared it, but many, too many, answered. Ships began to join her cause. Alien vessels, once loyal to the Council, now flew beside humans. Their captains no longer saw species, they saw unity, defiance, and hope. For the first time in history, the galaxy was beginning to fight together. In the Council chamber, panic reigned. Vortal stood before the remaining members of the Council of Nine, his voice sharp and desperate. "They are uniting! Do you understand what that means? Humans are infecting the stars with rebellion." One of the elders, a cold mechanical being, replied, "Our fleets are failing. Our supply lines are gone. The core worlds are turning against us." Vortal's voice broke into a snarl. "Then burn everything beyond the core. If they want chaos, we'll give them oblivion." But Sarath stepped forward. His crystal form shimmered with light. "No, Chancellor. You've already lost." Vortal turned to him, furious. "What did you say?" Sarath's tone was calm, almost sorrowful. "Elias Ward may be dead, but his words are not. They've spread to every world you ruled. You can't kill an idea." Vortal's eyes glowed red with rage. "Then I'll kill everyone who believes in it." Across the galaxy, Lena and her allies prepared for the next stage. She stood on the bridge of the newly built Erebus II, staring at a hologram of the Council's core system. A young alien officer turned to her. "Commander, the fleet is ready. But if we go there, none of us might return." Lena nodded slowly. He knew that too. She looked at the stars and whispered, "This is for you, Elias." The fleet jumped into hyperspace, hundreds of ships vanishing into streaks of light. In the void between galaxies, something stirred. Unbeknownst to both sides, a faint signal pulsed through the dark. It was old, terribly old and human. A small probe, half broken and covered in dust, drifted through empty space. Its data core flickered, replaying the last message it had received before Earth was attacked. Project Lazarus. Status active. A heartbeat of light blinked. Somewhere, hidden deep beneath the ruins of the old colonies, a machine came online, and a voice whispered through static, Elias Ward confirmed. Signal trace detected. Back in the council core, Sarath stood at the great window, staring at the distant stars. He spoke softly to no one in particular. They think they've killed him. But legends don't die. They wait. Vortal turned sharply. What did you say? Sarath only smiled faintly, his crystal eyes glowing brighter. You condemned Earth, Chancellor, but you didn't destroy it. You only gave it time to become something greater. Vortal's claws twitched. You speak as if this human is still out there. Sarath looked up at the stars. Maybe he is. In the cold emptiness of space, among shattered wrecks and drifting metal, a faint blue light flickered. A human escape pod, charred, nearly broken, floated silently. Inside, a single heartbeat pulsed, weak but steady. The monitors flickered to life, displaying a name. Captain Elias Ward. Status: critical. The pod drifted toward the shadow of a dying star, unseen by anyone, but the universe had already begun to change because of him. The stars were silent. Only the slow drift of wreckage filled the emptiness, but deep in that silence something stirred. Inside the escape pod, Captain Elias Ward opened his eyes. The air was thin. The lights were dying. The display beside him flickered in and out, showing static and half-broken messages. Vitals unstable. Oxygen low. Project Lazarus engaged. He tried to move, but pain shot through his body. His last memory was of Erebus, his ship exploding in fire and light. He had thought he was dead, and maybe in some way he was. Hours or maybe days passed in a blur. The pod drifted closer to a dark metallic shape hidden within the debris field. It wasn't a ship. It was something older, something human. As the pod's sensors locked on, a faint symbol appeared. A faded insignia of Earth's Defense Command. Lazarus Station, Elias whispered weakly. The pod connected. Magnetic locks engaged. Doors hissed open with ancient air and the smell of rust and oil. Elias stumbled inside. The lights flickered on one by one, revealing a vast underground chamber filled with dormant machines. Rows of glass pods lined the walls, each one containing sleeping soldiers. Frozen in time, a voice echoed through the silence. Welcome back, Captain Ward. Project Lazarus operational. Meanwhile, far across the stars, Lena Cross and the new Erebus II fleet were preparing for war. The humans and their alien allies had gathered for their most daring mission yet, a direct strike on the Council core world itself. Lena stood before the combined captains' assembly, her face cold but determined. Our enemy thinks they've broken us, she said. They think Elias Ward's death ended this fight. But they're wrong. His sacrifice gave us the strength to finish what he started. The room erupted in applause and roars from different species, but Lena raised her hand for silence. This isn't about revenge, she continued. It's about freedom, for every world that ever knelt before the Council. We go to end their rule once and for all. The fleet prepared for the final jump. Thousands of ships powered up, forming a massive formation shaped like a burning star, the same symbol painted on every hull. In the Council core, panic was spreading. Chancellor Vortal paced the command bridge, his eyes glowing with fury. How many fleets do we have left? A trembling officer replied, Only 3, my lord. The rest have defected or gone silent. Vortal's voice was a hiss. Then burn the human colonies. Every one of them. I want their world erased. But before his orders could be executed, alarms rang through the chamber. A massive energy spike was detected, coming from deep space. Back at Lazarus Station, Elias stood before a giant holographic map showing the galaxy's current state. Human fleets were scattered, fighting against impossible odds. The Council's power was breaking but not yet gone. The voice spoke again, smooth and mechanical. Lazarus protocol complete. Phase 2 ready for activation. Awaiting command authorization. Elias stared at the glowing console. His reflection looked older, haunted but alive. What? What is Phase 2, he asked. Humanity's failsafe, the AI replied. A weapon built to awaken only when Earth falls. Elias frowned. A weapon? Not a weapon. A fleet, the floor trembled. Hidden beneath the station, massive hangar doors opened, revealing ships, hundreds of them, ancient but intact. The Lazarus fleet engines powered up for the first time in centuries. Their hulls shimmered with blue light, marked with the same burning star symbol that Lena's fleet now carried. Elias felt something in his chest, something between sorrow and pride. "Send a signal," he said softly. "To all human frequencies. Signal ready." He hesitated for only a second, then gave the command. "Tell them, the condemned has returned." Across the galaxy, every human and allied ship received the transmission. Lena was on the bridge when the message played. The voice was cracked, weary, but unmistakable. "This is Captain Elias Ward of the original Erebus. Humanity still stands. The Council condemned us, but they never buried us. I am returning, and I am not alone." The bridge fell silent. Every crew member stared in disbelief. Lena felt tears form in her eyes. "Eliasing," she whispered. Then she smiled, half joy, half awe. "He's alive." Within moments, the entire rebel network lit up. Every ship, every outpost, every world in rebellion echoed the same phrase across the stars. "The condemned returns." Back in the council chamber, Vortal's fury turned to panic. "Impossible." "He died. We saw the explosion." Sarath, standing near the great window, said quietly. "You can't destroy what you don't understand," Vortal snarled. "Then I'll erase him again, this time completely." He pointed toward the fleet commanders. "All ships, prepare for final engagement. We face Earth's ghost." The stars above the council core began to fill with light. From one side came the Erebus II fleet, Lena's ships, burning bright with defiance. From the other came the Lazarus fleet, emerging from hyperspace in perfect formation. The two human-led forces met in the void, thousands of ships aligning side by side. At the center, the flagship Lazarus Prime appeared, Elias Ward standing at its helm. He looked toward Lena's ship on the scanner and smiled faintly. "Looks like you kept my seat warm." Lena's voice came through the comms, trembling with emotion. "Welcome back, Captain." Elias looked out at the stars, the same council worlds that once sentenced Earth to death. "It's time," he said quietly, "for them to face their own judgment." Every ship prepared for the final assault. The void trembled with the energy of thousands of engines, ready to unleash their fury. For the first time in galactic history, humanity was united, not under fear but under purpose. And as the fleets advanced, the words that started it all echoed once again across the comms, carried by every human voice. When they condemned us, they sealed their own doom. The galaxy held its breath. For the first time in millennia, the sky above the council core was filled with two opposing armadas, both vast, both unstoppable. One was the remnant of the Galactic Council, desperate and broken, clinging to their last symbol of power. The other, the combined human and allied fleet led by Captain Elias Ward and Commander Lena Cross, was a storm born from ashes. At the heart of it all, the Erebus II and Lazarus Prime drifted side by side, their hulls gleaming in the cold light of distant stars. Elias stood on the bridge of Lazarus Prime, staring at the holographic display. Thousands of red enemy signals filled the screen. "They have more ships than we thought," said his tactical officer. Elias smiled faintly. "Then they'll make bigger targets." Lena's voice came through the comms, clear and steady. "Elias, our forward wings are ready. Just give the order." He took a deep breath. "All units, activate Formation Omega. No retreat, no surrender." Today, the condemned returned the verdict. The first shots were fired. Blue and red beams lit up the void as ships collided in a fury of light. Explosions bloomed like dying stars. Entire fleets vanished within seconds, their debris scattering across the battlefield. On the Erebus II, Lena barked orders over the chaos. "Redirect power to shields. Target their dreadnought's engines. Don't give them time to regroup." Her ship shook violently as enemy fire hit the hull, but she refused to flinch. Meanwhile, on Lazarus Prime, Elias coordinated the second wave. His voice remained calm, even as alarms screamed around him. "Focus fire on their command ships. Cut the head and the body will fall." Thousands of human and alien ships responded in unison, unleashing coordinated barrages that ripped through the Council's formation. Inside the Council Command Citadel, Chancellor Vortal roared in rage. How dare they defy us? I want every weapon online. Destroy their fleet. His officers scrambled, but the panic in their eyes told him what he already feared. They were losing control. The holographic display flickered, showing their fleets collapsing under the combined human assault. Then a new transmission appeared. Elias Ward's face. Vortal froze. "You," he hissed. "You should be dead." Elias's voice was steady, cold as steel. "I was. You killed Earth. You burned our worlds. You called us condemned. But the truth is you condemned yourselves the moment you forgot what justice meant." Vortal snarled. "You think your kind can rule the stars?" Elias shook his head. "We don't want to rule. We just want to be free." Then the transmission cut and the human fleet advanced. In orbit, the Council's superweapon, the solar spear, charged its core. A massive cannon capable of destroying an entire planet. On the Erebus II, sensors picked it up immediately. "Commander, the solar spear is powering up." Lena's eyes widened. "If that fires, half our fleet is gone." She opened a channel. "Elias, we have to take that weapon down." Elias nodded grimly. "Agreed. I'll lead the strike." Lena's voice hardened. "You're not doing this alone again." He smiled faintly. "I was hoping you'd say that." The two ships, Erebus II and Lazarus Prime, dove through the chaos side by side, weaving between burning wrecks and enemy fire. Dozens of Council cruisers tried to intercept them, but human and allied ships formed a protective wall, sacrificing themselves to clear the path. "Stay on course," Elias shouted. The solar spear loomed ahead, a monstrous station glowing with deadly energy. Lena locked onto the weapon's power core. "Target locked." "Then let's finish this," Elias said. Together, both ships unleashed their full arsenal, railguns, plasma bursts, and torpedoes raining fire on the weapon's exposed reactor. Solar spear's core overloaded, light bursting from every seam. "Elias," Lena shouted, "it's going to blow." "Then pull back," he ordered, but the Lazarus Prime was already too close. The explosion ripped across space, brighter than any star. The shockwave knocked ships out of orbit, and the Council Citadel itself began to collapse under the energy surge. Lena watched in horror as Lazarus Prime disappeared into the light. "Elias, do you copy?" Static answered. For a long, terrible moment, there was only silence. Then, slowly, the light faded. Through the drifting smoke and debris, a single ship emerged, scarred but intact. Lazarus Prime limped forward, its hull glowing faintly. Elias's voice came through the comms, weak but alive. "Next time, you're driving." Lena laughed through tears. "Welcome back, Captain." On the planet below, the Council's citadel burned. Vortal stumbled through the collapsing hall, the once proud banners of the Council falling around him. He looked up at the sky, at the countless human ships above, and realized the truth. It wasn't the humans who had doomed the galaxy. It was their own arrogance. As the ceiling gave way, his last words were a whisper. "We should have never condemned them." Days later, the war was over. The Council was gone. Their fleets surrendered or vanished. And for the first time in galactic history, the stars were free. Elias stood on the bridge of Erebus II beside Lena, looking out at the galaxy that had cost so much to save. "Do you think it's really over?" Lena asked quietly. Elias nodded slowly. "No war ever truly ends, but this time, we gave the galaxy a choice." He looked out at the stars. "And maybe that's enough." Months passed. The Alliance of Free Worlds was formed. Humans, aliens, and even former enemies working side by side. On Earth's ruins, green began to grow again. Children born under new suns learned of the man who defied the Council, the woman who carried his flame, and the day the condemned rose to judge their judges. Elias never sought power, never claimed a title. He became a symbol, a reminder that humanity, no matter how small, could change the stars. And so, when historians spoke of the war that ended the Council, they gave it a name: the Judgment of Earth. A moment when those who were condemned stood up and the galaxy finally learned what humanity truly meant.